what you want, what you want.
Hey guys, welcome to step 1 in how to build a groundbreaker. So the groundbreaker we're going to make will be something like the picture you just saw before, but it's not going to be exactly the same. I have a hard time building the exact same thing twice. So, I mean, it's still going to be along that same look, but the pose is going to be a little bit different than what I did on that previous groundbreaker. As well, you know, you guys are used to in these other videos that I do, we really make something from nothing. So we're starting out with cardboard box, or we're starting out with plastic stuff with newspaper, or we're just wadding up newspaper, certain armatures. In this beginning video where we're going to build the armature, we're going to cheat a little bit. It's not really cheating per se, it just really kind of makes this whole thing a little bit quicker. I did build once a chest rib cage for a skeleton that I made completely out of mache and nothing else. I have not made a video on that. If those of you who are interested, give me comments, let me know, and we can build one like that. It's very, very time consuming, but we can do it. So if you guys are interested in something like that, just let me know. Anyway, back to the project on hand. In this one, to build our armature, you should be able to do it in a day, basically in an evening. Get it all set up and be ready to start laying mache on it and creating our textures and our features and getting our details. So without rambling on too much longer, let me change some things around and I'll show you the things that we need just to complete the build process of the armature. Alright, so the first thing we want to go over is the supplies you're going to need to get this armature built. And the first thing we're going to need is a base to build off of. Using a base like this will help keep moisture out of your project from your yard if you put it in there as well. Also, it's really nice because once we get this armature built, the whole thing will stand up and we can work all the way around it when we're doing our mache work. So, nice piece of scrap plywood is wonderful. This piece in particular, you can see I've done other stuff on it. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go right over this. But this piece is about 15 inches by 9. You could make as big a base as you want, but I don't really think I would go much smaller than this. That way you make sure you're nice and stable. And on this project, we're going to bring both arms back down into this, so our breaker's going to look like he's pushing himself up out of the ground. So at least 15 inches we'll need for these arms to come back down in here and look decent. So you need your base. You're going to need, this is a, I don't even know what kind of flange you call this. You get this at Lowe's or Home Depot. It's a 3/4 inch, it says. All I did to find the one I needed, this is a 1/2 inch fitting for 1/2 inch PVC with a threaded end. And I just took this and went to these phalanges until I found the one that this would thread into. Yeah, real rocket science, but we'll need one of these. You're going to need this 1/2 inch fitting right here for 1/2 inch PVC threaded on this end. We're going to need 2 90s. That's how we're going to connect our arms. And we're going to need 1 T. And you're going to need some PVC. Now, what I got here is I got one stick of PVC that's 4 foot long. And I've got another stick of electrical conduit that's 1/2 inch. And by the way, this is all 1/2 inch PVC. And then my electrical conduit's about 3 foot long. So roughly, if you go to the hardware store and you buy 1 1/2 inch stick of PVC that's 10 foot long, it'll be plenty for you to get this project done. We're also going to need some kind of vinyl tubing like this. I've seen some people use hose. I particularly haven't used any hose. I don't know. I just buy this stuff at Lowe's. It's a clear vinyl tubing. It is 1/2 inch in the outside diameter. And it's about, this is about $6 a roll. It's a little expensive, but it's easy to use and I like it. It bends well. I just like using it. But you're going to need at least 2 of these. You're not going to use up all the second one, but you don't have enough in the first one to get the job done. So you can need at least 2 of these. So you've got, you know, a few dollars in fittings. You got a few dollars in your PVC pipe. So total, you might have $5 in PVC. You're going to have $12 in this. This little bracket's about $5. And you're going to be running close to $20, $25 total. But that's really about it to get this created. So it's not too bad. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's not too bad. And then besides just these, then you're going to need a skull. You could use a foam skull from Walmart, one of the cheap ones to put on the top of it. You could use a fancy skull if you got one. Or you could just use a paper mache skull that you made. I'm going to be using, this is what I call a paper mache blank. If you don't know how to do this, it's just a replica. There is a video up in Paper Mache Basics at the top of the tutorial page. It says how to make a skull for $2 or a replica skull for $2. Watch that video. It's a step-by-step on how to create one of these. It's not difficult, but do it however you want to. If you just want to put a foam skull on it, go ahead. Process is faster, or make yourself your own mache skull. But anyway, you'll need the skull. You're going to need the PVC and all the parts. You're going to need a piece of plywood as a base, the tubing, which will be the chest, and this is what we're going to use to anchor down to our base. And then the tools we'll need, oh, you're going to need some screws. These are sheetrock or a wood screw. The thread's pretty aggressive. I've just got a lot of these laying around the house from different projects, and that's what I use. They work well. You'll need a drill or a screwdriver, but I recommend a drill. It makes it easier. You're going to need a heat gun because we're going to bend our PVC. We're going to heat up and bend our PVC. And you're going to need a glue gun to attach your skull to the top. So pretty much that should be it. A base out of plywood, 1 flange, 2 90-degree PVC fittings, 1/2 inch, 1 1/2 inch T, 1 1/2 inch fitting for the bottom that's got a threaded end, and for the 1/2 inch to slide into. You're going to need at least a 10-foot stick of 1/2 inch PVC, and then for this stuff at least 2 rolls of this vinyl clear tubing. And just to give you an idea, so I'm saying 2 rolls, 1 roll of this is 10 foot long, and we use 1 roll plus a little bit of another, so you know, 15 foot probably of some other type of equivalent tubing that you got laying around will do just fine. So the first thing we did was I cut down PVC to create the spine, the neck, and the shoulders for our armature. Now the one thing I didn't show you, I should show you in the tools, one of the best things I have on hand for cutting PVC is a PVC cutter like this. Some of these you can get are pretty expensive, nice and ratchet, or you can pick one up like this for, you know, $5, $6, and they do the job. But if you're going to be cutting PVC, you should really have one of these on hand. It works great. Anyway, give us our dimensions so we got some proportion to this thing. Our spine, which is what I'm calling our spine, or piece of PVC that's running from the base of the board to this T. And this is going to be a 17-inch piece. So from the bottom to the top is 17 inches. Now our neck piece, because of the skull I'm using, the overall length of this is 11 1/16 of an inch. Now, here's the reasoning for this. This line right here, this represents where the base of the skull will set. So this is our dimensions for our neck, okay? And I'm trying to keep this as close to proportions as can be. I looked up some things online and got some dimensions of an overall skeleton from a few different websites, and I put these things together so we could create something that was close to real and have some kind of resemblance of true proportions. So anyway, this being 11 and 1/16 inches long, the reason for that is the replica skull that I use with the hole in it, this sinks up quite a ways in here, and I need this to fit just about at that baseline where the spine would meet the base of the skull itself. So on this piece though, this line is 5 3/16. From here to our baseline right here is 5 3/16. That's an important thing to remember. That's the height of your neck. So that way we'll slide that down on, and when we actually go to attach the skull is going to come in here to the baseline, as you can see, of the neck, and then we've got pretty much a standard neck of what a human would be. So keep that in mind. And then for our shoulder pieces, I got two pieces here. They're both 5.5 inches long, roughly. It may be off by 1/16 of an inch, but 5.5 inches long. So by the time we put these on, and we put our 90s on, our overall shoulder width is just a little over 14 inches here. And as we bulk this up to create an arm bone and create mache, our shoulder width from the outside to outside will get just a little bit wider than that. But if we keep this real close to just a little over 14 inches long, this thing's going to look good. It's going to be more realistic. So do your first cuts, your spine cuts, 17 inches long. No matter what kind of skull you use, your overall length of this top one's going to vary depending on your skull, how far up in your PVC will go into your skull. But the main thing to remember is from the bottom of the PVC to your line right here where the skull basically meets the spine itself, this is going to be 5 3/16 marked off right here, 5 3/16. Then we got two pieces here that are 5.5 inches. This gives us a good baseline to build something really cool off of. First thing we need to do is mount this flange to the board. Those screws usually go through, so you want to turn it over and cut them off. I do not recommend doing this in the house. It's a pretty good fire hazard, as you can see. First thing we're going to do is glue up the spine, neck, and shoulder pieces. That threaded flange we got, just tighten that down hand tight. There's no need to put any kind of a sealant on it or any kind of a thread lock or anything. Just wrench it down there hand tight and it'll be good enough. And then just glue all these pieces together. Okay, so to start creating the chest or rib cage, we're going to start off with a piece of tubing, and this thing's cut roughly about 17.5 inches long. Basically what we're going to do is attach it here at the top, and then we're going to bring another point down here and attach it. Now this point, this is roughly right around 8 7/8 of an inch, where we're going to put the second screw in. It's really just to get a feel for you to bring out a nice arch. That arch, looking from the side, you know, that's about what we're going for to get our chest cavity out there. So right now we're just going to use some screws and attach them in. And again, when you're doing this, be very careful. I'm just going to take my drill and go right through this, right to the PVC, and do the same for the bottom. The screws I use will protrude out the back, so you got to make sure that you don't catch your fingers on the screw or screw into your fingers. Safety first, guys. I mean, if you attempt this, it's at your own risk. Just be careful and be safe. Remember, you're using power tools, you're using sharp objects. I mean, you have the potential to hurt yourself if you're not careful. So for our first rib, I cut a piece of tubing that was about 19.5 inches long, found the center point, and then just screwed that straight through the tubing, straight into that first arch piece we put out. Then wrapped the tubing around the back side and screwed through both pieces straight back into the PVC. Now for our second rib, we cut another piece of tubing that's about 23 1/4 of an inch long. Now the difference on this, the way we attached it, is I pulled the two end pieces together on the front side, drilled through both of those into that piece of tubing, and then found the solid center piece in the back and drilled that into the PVC. By doing that, it allows you to swivel these ribs up front so you can get them to flow kind of down. You can control the way the ribs angle. So our next rib is just a little bit longer. It's about 23 3/4 of an inch, and we attach it the exact same way we did the rib above. Then our fourth rib here is cut at about 25 inches long and attached the same way. Again, please be careful when you do this. It's very easy to screw straight into your finger. Alright, so real fast, on the ribs that we've done so far and the dimensions I've gave you, you know, these are almost a little bit short. I think I probably could have come out about another inch or so. And really when I do this, I'm just playing by eye. I'm taking the tubing that we got and I'm running it around and just kind of eyeballing it and getting it together. Once I cut them, I'm just giving you guys some base dimensions to really help you out so it's a little bit easier with those dimensions, where if you want to go an inch or so more and make your own judgment, that you can. I mean, it just gives you a good baseline to start with. You can cut it and not fight a whole roll like what I do. But the base of what I do is we got one rib that's small at the top. We come out a little bit wider. The second one's generally, if I do 6, these two are going to be about the same size, and then this one's a little bit bigger, and then the other one's bigger. Now, on this one, really didn't come down far enough, so we're only going to get 5 ribs on here. But that's decent enough. It gets the point across. Everybody knows what it is. The second thing I really want to note too, as it was probably stated before, all the ones further down, this one I just ran it through the tube and I put the screws with the ends of the tube in the back because I wanted this one straight. But the reasoning that I brought the 2 cut pieces together and put the screw in is so that you can adjust these and bend these down, and you can change the angle on the ribs. That way you get a better look overall. You can make these things come down like that rib cage does instead of them being just straight out. So by doing that, it gives you more control when you're putting it together. This last rib I'm going to put on here is going to be a little bit shorter. I always finish off the rib on the bottom is shorter than the one here. So this was like 25, this one's going to be 23, and I'm going to bring it at quite a bit more of an angle than these are too. I'm really going to dip this down, and that'll get the rib cage portion of our armature settled in. Alright, so now that we got our basic shape for our ribs and chest in place, I'm going to heat this up, start at the bottom, we're going to bend it down, and then carefully we're going to heat the inside of the PVC in here, trying not to heat the tubes at the same time. It's a difficult task. You got to be careful to kind of keep that heat on the PVC itself. And we're going to bend it down, and then we're going to kind of pull a curl up in the spine where the back of the spine is going to be at an arch. All right, so starting at the base, we'll take our heat gun and heat this up, and we're going to pull this thing down and put him at an angle. Let that cool so it's in place, and then we're going to work on the PVC on the inside of the rib cage. Honestly, best practice is to unscrew the ribs from the back side of this piece of PVC, get them out of your way, and then heat it. Other than that, if you don't, you're really going to heat those ribs and you're going to distort them and change how they look. Alright, so now we got pretty much a nice gentle arch through here where he looks like he's kind of forcing himself up out of the ground. Next thing we're going to do is do our arms. Okay, so we got 2 pieces of conduit or PVC, whichever you're using. This is cut at 19.5 inches. You could get away with 19 3/4 or even 20 inches if you wanted to. I probably cut this one just a little short, but we'll make it work. Anyway, this mark right here, this is 10.5 inches down from the top. Right here in this part, we're going to heat, and we're going to bend this, and this is going to create the joint between the upper arm and the forearm down here. So when we have this in, we're going to put this in our 90, and we're going to heat this here, and then we're going to bend the forearm and bring it down to to where it's meeting the board down here, so it looks like his arms are still on the ground pushing him up. Now that we got our arms basically set into place, we're going to make some marks on these forearms, because what we're going to do is cut these forearms down in here and split this PVC in half. We're going to heat it up and bend it and make our individual split bone down here on the bottom side. So we're going to make our mark on both arms. We're going to remove them, make that mark on the back side of it as well, and then just take a Dremel tool and cut right down those lines that we just made to split these two pieces in half. So this next part, we're going to heat this, spread this out, and bend it over to make it look like two separate bones. Now before you do this, you're going to be using the heat gun. It gets very, very hot. You're using your hands. You can easily burn your fingers. Plus, really, anytime you're heating PVC, you should be in a well-ventilated area. You shouldn't be in an enclosed area, because the fumes that this lets off can be very toxic. So you need to keep that in mind. As well, you might want to use gloves of some type, like almost like a welder's glove. If you don't have those, you know, they got those gloves everybody gets for grilling, barbecue grilling. That would work too. They hold off heat quite a bit. Just a word of caution, it is hot. You're going to see that I just use my fingers, but I really don't recommend you using that. I mean, you really run the risk of burning yourself. So just be extra careful when you're doing this. Anyway, we're going to heat this. We're going to split it out. And I've also got a long screwdriver that once I heat up, I'll put inside here, and I'm going to form this PVC, this conduit around this screwdriver. Now the easiest way to gap this is if you got a Sharpie or something like that. You can run that straight up through, just like this, right into place here, and just get you that first bit of separation. And then we'll want this to cool down before we move on. Alright, now we got this cooled down. It's holding its shape pretty well. Next thing we're going to do is heat these one at a time. We're going to wrap them around our screwdriver. Like I said, I recommend if you have a pair of gloves or even a rag, anything to help hold the heat back from burning your hand. As well, we're going to have some tape ready, because as soon as we can kind of handle this with our hands, we're going to tape it around to hold the shape as it cools off. And then we're just going to continue this process on this other side right here until we got it looking like this as well. Now that we got these wrapped and spread out, we're going to heat this and bend these back together again. We'll take a little tape. Use the tape to hold it into place. There we go. Now, of course, this part here, you could skip this whole step. You could leave this one solid piece if you don't want to cut it, if you don't want to deal with the fumes, if you don't want to worry about burning your hands. It's fine. You get away with it. It won't be any problem at all. You can just bring it down. No one will notice. It's just for you and what you do. I do this to put a little extra detail into it, but if you don't want to do this step, by all means, just leave it a straight piece of pipe. It'll look fine. I just wanted to say that this step is not absolutely necessary. There's 4 or 5 different ways you could do it, and the outlook's still going to be good. This just happens to be the way that I do it. Alright, so we got our arms cut and bent. You know, they're back into place. The only thing we got to do now is we're going to glue these arms into place. Now just one final piece to finish this off, and this armature will all be done. We just need to add a collarbone. And I'm doing that last because the piping will run from the center point of the chest here right over here to the shoulder. So I want one of these glued and in place before I put this on, because we'll screw these in here and we'll screw it in here, and then I'm going to wrap it in tape and pull it down real tight. So really the best way to get your measurement on this is just to put it up against this armature. Just eyeball it where it looks good. Now I'm going to tape this down so we bring these edges in and make this kind of disappear a little bit more. That way it looks like it's just folding into the shoulders. I'm going to use electrical tape to do this just because you can pull it so much tighter. Alright, so here it is. We've got our armature all done. You can build this in an evening within just a couple hours. If you really just get down to it. You don't have to follow the exact directions. I mean, you could leave this spine straight if you wanted to, make him come straight out. Use your imagination, do whatever you want to do with it. I prefer to try to bend things and make them look a little more realistic. Still need to tighten these down yet. And I'll have to tighten them down until once I get them all set, and then I'll tighten them completely. But as far as the arms go on this one, and I told you it was like 19 1/4 or 19 1/2 inches, I think I told you total on the pipe. I would go, honestly, if you follow my dimensions on the PVC, I would cut these at 20 inches. That way, and keep this measurement the same here where we bend the arm, but overall I go 20 inches, because when we do this cut, if you do this part and cut this and heat this, and by the time you spread this out and pull it back, it shrinks, it pulls back a little bit, so we're not quite touching the board, and I want to anchor those down tight to the board later on. So for me, what I'm going to have to do is, it'll be an easy fix. I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to heat this joint and bend this just a little bit. That way this does touch. And I'll do the same thing on the other one. I'll heat this one and bend it down so it does touch as well. But just to keep you guys from having to do that, if you cut those at 19, you'll have the extra PVC sitting there, and it'll reach down and touch no problem. But that's it, guys. That's the armature wrapped up pretty quick. It's easy to do. I know this isn't Mache base right here, but this is a quick, fast, easy armature that you can put up in one day, and then the next day we can start putting skin on this and making it really turn into something. So sometimes there's a little bit of benefit from using something other than Mache at the beginning. A lot of our projects will, but this one doesn't. It's just quicker, faster, so you can knock out, if you're going to do 2 or 3 of these, you can knock 2 or 3 of them out in a day if you wanted to, and then proceed on. So we got our armature done. Our next video is going to be about how to skin this. We'll attach the head, we'll skin it, and we'll start adding all the details. So in the next tutorial, we'll go through everything. Well, by the end of it, we'll have the skin, we'll have all the detail on it, we'll have it all finished out and ready for paint. I'll see you in the next tutorial. What you want?